So, welcome to the 2001 edition of the Walk, Click, Make annual gift list. We're doing things a little bit differently this year. We did things a little bit differently last year as well, but more so this year. As you know, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and as a result, the walk part of Walk, Click, Make hasn't been too successful. We haven't been able to do any long distance walks in France or Japan or any other country for that matter. We've been pretty much stuck at home. So as a result, it's pretty hard to do any gifts related to lightweight travel gear and what have you, or photography gear that you might be taking with you on a trip. Instead, over the last 2 years, I've been more or less focusing on Polaroid work, as you will well be familiar if you're following anything that I'm doing on Walk, Click, Make lately. And as a result, this list is going to be pretty much entirely geared towards someone who, like me, has sort of become obsessed by Polaroid photography, for better or for worse. And this list is going to be a bunch of things that I've used over the past couple of years steadily, that I'm familiar with, that I've used, and that I think should be a part of anybody's kit who's working in Polaroid photography. And the other big thing that's different here is that I'm doing this outdoors and I'm doing it on film as well. This is the first video production with the gift list. Usually it's done on a blog post on my walkclickmake.com blog site. This is going to be a video post that's going to be on the blog site, but as well on my YouTube site, Walk, Click, Make YouTube site. So with that, let's get on with the show. Now, just before we get started, I should mention that all the prices I'm going to be mentioning right here and all the items I'm going to be mentioning are going to be listed down below. And it'll give you some sources where to get this stuff and also some idea of the cost that's involved. Generally, if the source is from the United States, I'm going to be listing the price in US dollars, even though I'm right here in Canada, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. A lot of the stuff does come from the States, so I'll be using US dollars in those cases. And if there does happen to be a Canadian source, then I'll be listing that in Canadian dollars. But again, bear in mind that the prices are approximate. They're just to get you an idea, a ballpark of how much you'll be spending. Okay, let's start with the cameras. I've got two cameras that I'm going to talk about. One only briefly, and that's my favorite camera is my Mint SLR 670S, which offers full manual control. Wonderful folding camera by Polaroid, a vintage Polaroid camera. Really nice, except it's really expensive, so I can't really suggest that this would be an ideal gift for Christmas time to somebody else. It's somebody, if that person is really interested in it, they'll go out and buy it themselves. However, for that person who's maybe just getting into Polaroid, then I would suggest maybe the Polaroid Now Plus, which is a contemporary camera. It was just introduced last fall, and I've done a review on it. I've done some testing on it. I've used it a bit, quite a bit actually, and I think it's quite a fun camera to work with. As you know, it comes with some filters that you can play with, and you can also do some of the experiments that I talked about using the zone system, using variable neutral density filters, or using contrast filters for the Polaroid black and white film. You can do all that, send them back to my YouTube videos, and they can find out about all that and all the other accessories that they might be needing to do those tests. But this is sort of the entry point for doing some creative work with Polaroid SX-70 film. Now, the beauty of this, of course, is that it's $150 US, and I quite like it. The other important thing, of course, should have mentioned this right off the bat, is that it uses the Polaroid app on your smartphone, so it allows you to gain a fairly good level of manual control. Anyways, this is a pretty fine gift for somebody. $150. It's a reasonably expensive but affordable gift if you wanted to give it to somebody. This is the camera that I would recommend. The second most important thing to a camera is, of course, film, and a good gift is always going to be Polaroid film. Now, the kind of film you would get as a gift is going to depend on the kind of camera that your gift receiver has. So, for example, if your person has a vintage Polaroid camera, chances are good that it's going to be using an SX-70 kind of film, which is available in color and black and white versions. If you have a mint camera such as I have, which has been converted to 600 film, then of course you're going to want to get the Polaroid 600 film. Or if you are giving, for example, or the person has a Polaroid Now Plus, which is a contemporary camera, then that camera is going to be using the I-type film, which doesn't have a battery in it and is slightly less expensive than the regular 600 and SX-70 film. Now, if you're buying the film, I would recommend that you go to the source. I'd go to buy it online at Polaroid, simply because they have bulk deals. You can get a pack of 5 at a discounted price, basically. And also you're going to be guaranteed that you're going to be getting fresh dated film. Normally I would say go buy it locally, but the trouble is that a lot of times the film is just kept under the counter unrefrigerated, which is not ideal. You don't know how long it's been like that. When you buy it from Polaroid directly, you know it's going to be fresh, and it's going to be will have been stored in a cool situation, because you always want to refrigerate Polaroid film once you have it until you start using it. So this might seem a little bit odd as a gift at this time of year. This is basically it's a cooler pack. Now right now it's mid-December in Winnipeg. The temperature is actually quite balmy at about 0 degrees Celsius, minus 1 degree Celsius roughly. Very nice day, but I'm definitely not going to need a cooler pack. However, if you use Polaroid film, then you know that it's very, very sensitive to the ambient temperature that it's being shot in and processed in. So you don't want to get your film to get too cold, you don't want to get film to get too hot, or your camera for that matter. And I found this year that when I was out taking pictures in the summertime, when it does get up to easily plus 30 degrees centigrade, that when I'm out in the sun taking pictures, that the temperature actually inside whatever bag I might be carrying film in could get up to plus 40 degrees centigrade, which is not good. That's well outside the range, and you start to see funny things happening with your pictures. So anyways, this is for those warm days wherever you happen to be in the world. Use a cooler bag, and inside the bag what you do is well, first of all, I'll explain that I originally got this bag so I could do an experiment in wintertime using hand warmers that would keep the interior nice and warm while I'm taking the pictures in, let's say, temperatures like this, or minus 10 degrees centigrade. Doesn't work too well, so we'll just put that aside. However, I did find that it worked really well in the summertime. What I do is I buy an ice pack that I freeze, and when I'm going out into the field, I'll just put this in the bottom of this. I'll put in some sort of little insulation layer, and then I'll put my film, or in some occasions I'll actually put the camera in there as well, just to keep it a little bit on the cooler side. Just make sure you have a little bit of an insulation layer between the ice pack and the camera itself. The other good thing is when you're getting your cooler pack is to get a nice little thermometer right here, so you can find out exactly what kind of temperatures you're dealing with, both outside and inside your pack. So that's a good idea to get. You can just get that at a hardware shop or a kitchen shop, for example. Just something cheap so you get an idea of the temperature. Now the bag itself, I bought this early on in the pandemic, so going into a store to actually test out to find out what the best bag was not going to work. So I had to order something online, and I came across this company. They're called High Speed Daddy, and basically it's a couple of U.S. vets. One is a Marine and one is an Army vet, and they set up this company, and basically it's equipment, it's stuff that they use for kids to store baby formula in and carry. They have backpacks for diapers and what have you. But what I found is that reading the ratings, that this actually had better insulation than most cooler packs out there, so I decided to go with this, and it really is quite a nice pack. It's super durable. It's like a a pretty rugged camera bag, really, with little zippered packs in the front and little netting things on the side. There's a little place in the top here where you can store stuff as well. And there's lots of room here to put in your cooler pack and also a camera. Even an open SX-70 folding camera could fit in here as well. So anyways, there's lots of cooler packs out there, but I mean, how can you go wrong with a company called High Speed Daddy? Anyways, take a look at that. You'll find the information down below how to find it. It's not that expensive, so give it a try. So something that is useful at this time of year is a neck pouch that fits inside your parka or your winter coat and fits under your sleeve right here. This is a neck pouch that I've had kicking around for ages. It's made by a company called Boole. I could not find any information about this, but really there's lots of neck pouches out there that you can use. The important thing is to make sure that it's about 5.5 inches across so that you can easily slip in an SX-70 picture. The idea is you take the picture with your camera and you quickly put it inside here, tuck it under your arm, and then close up your parka around it and let it develop in comfort at a fairly nice warm temperature. Anyway, so that, as I mentioned, this particular one it's gonna be pretty hard to find. This is another one that I have purchased. This one is made by a company called Mountain Warehouse. It's a British company, and we have an outlet here in Winnipeg. However, you can buy it online and in the States as well as Canada. And right now they happen to be on a clearance price of about $4, either US or Canadian dollars. And so you might want to consider that. Again, it's about 5.5 inches wide. It has a zippered pouch right here that is wide enough to put pictures in. Now, interestingly enough, tend to use this one for the winter time, and this is the one I actually carried around in summertime, just hanging around my front, so I've got an easy place to put my photographs in after I've taken them out of the camera to develop. And part of the reason for that is, aside from temperature, I try to avoid crinkling them by putting them in pockets and things like that where they might get creased or something might inadvertently push against the surface of the picture and cause a physical defect to the picture itself. So I find that trying to use this in the summertime is sort of a gentle way of dealing with your pictures while they're developing. If you're shopping for a person that already has a vintage folding SX-70 camera, whether it's the mint edition or just a regular one, an accessory that I've made a lot of use of is this little filter holder that slips onto the camera over the lens. Just fits on top like that. And this allows you then to attach filters to the front of your camera. And again, if you've looked at my my videos from on YouTube and on my blog site, you'll know that I've been using filters a lot for my zone photography. I've used them for my calibrated variable neutral density filter, as well as for attaching basically color contrast filters used for black and white Polaroid photography. And again, just screws into the front. Now, the adapter itself, the one that I'm using, is made by Retrograde Engineering. It's called the Retrograde Engineering SX-37 filter lens adapter. It has basically a threaded 37 millimeter front on it. If you wanted to go a little bit further, you could get a step-up ring, which goes from 37 millimeter up to a 40.5 millimeter filter size, and then you could also then launch into getting a set of 40.5 millimeter filters for the person. However, I think it's probably good enough just to get the Retrograde Engineering filter lens adapter. And again, if they go to my YouTube videos, they'll find out lots of information about using black and white filters as well as variable neutral density filters and so on with their vintage camera. Next on the list is a good tripod. I use a tripod consistently when I'm using my Mint camera. It allows me to set up my pictures, to compose accurately, take a picture, and then wait the requisite 15 minutes for color SX-70 film until it develops, and then go back and make adjustments to my exposure and then do another one, knowing that I still have the same composition. So that I find the tripod extremely helpful for that. Now if you have a Polaroid Now Plus where you're using the app for manual control, then in a way the tripod is almost essential, because it's almost impossible to handle the app as well as the camera trying to take a picture handheld. So it's a good idea to put the camera on a tripod, so that then you can use your hand to find and take the exposure with the Polaroid app. Anyways, this is the tripod that I've been using, and it's the MePhoto road trip aluminum travel tripod. It's about US $129. I like it because it's really compact, it's quite sturdy, has a lot of interesting features to it. Like I said, it folds up really compactly. It fits into a backpack or alongside of a backpack if you have a tripod holder. And it opens up quite easily when you're in the field. Anyways, so you can see that it has quite a height to it, and it's full extension. It's sturdy enough to hold a folding mint Polaroid SX-70 camera. You wouldn't want any lighter than this, because especially with a folding camera where it has that big mirror that's flopping back and forth, it could set off a little bit of vibration, and so anything lighter than this, you might find that you'll start to get a little bit of blur in your motion blur in your pictures. So this is pretty much as light as I would want to go, and probably it's even a better idea to reduce the center extension down right here. Now the MePhoto tripod, quite nice. It has a leg that comes off so you can use it as a monopod. The other nice thing is that it has an Arca-Swiss mount right here, which is it's basically a quick mount that's fairly universal these days, and quite helpful. So here we have my Now Plus. It just clicks on there, and there we have it's done, and we're off to the races. Now, if you happen to have a vintage folding SX-70 type of camera, and you've got it on a tripod and you're taking longer exposures or even shorter exposures, I always like to use a remote shutter release. This is a vintage Polaroid shutter release that just plugs into this little slot at the side of the camera, and then allows you to basically take your pictures without having to press the shutter and possibly again causing vibrations. Anyways, that's what I like to use. Now if you can't find one of these, again, these are vintage ones, so they're in a limited supply, so to speak, but you can find them online. Just shop around on eBay. The other alternative is to use the little Mint camera selfie timer, they call it. It's a self timer, but they call it a self-e timer. And again, it's just a little thing like this that slips into the side here and allows you to adjust your self timer from 3 seconds to 10 seconds. So in my case, I would set it to 3 seconds, push the button, and allow the camera to take the picture without that way I don't have to worry about any sort of vibration caused by me pressing the shutter during an exposure. Now, if you are using the Now Plus, for example, the Polaroid Now Plus, then you don't need to worry about this at all, because you would be using the camera app, which has a remote shutter release built into it, and you'd also be using the little red button that is used in the manual functions as well. If you've watched my videos at all about using the Polaroid camera, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the Asahi Pentax Spot Meter 5 meter. This is mine. I've had this since I believe the 1970s, and it's still working really well. It even works in the cold winter weather here in Manitoba. Now the beauty of the spot meter is that it's taking a very narrow 1 degree spot meter reading of whatever you're looking at. So you can take a measurement of a white area and then go down and take a measure of a black area, or a gray area, get a reading of each of those and use that to put together a good exposure time for your picture. Whether it happens to be a Polaroid picture or whether you're using a 4x5 view camera and 4x5 film, it doesn't really matter. It really helps you to zero in on your correct exposure, especially if you're using a zone system. Anyways, this is a really worthwhile thing to have. It's again, it's a little bit on the bulky side, but I really love it, especially if you're trying to use the zone system, as I've outlined in some of my previous videos. This is pretty much essential. It's no longer manufactured, of course. It's a used thing. You'll have to go on eBay to find it. The price is generally around in the $250 mark. So take a look around on eBay and you'll find it. And you also find some links for finding it on eBay down below. Now, if you do get this for your photographer friend, then I would suggest you also get the little stick-on label, the zone system stick-on label, which is extremely helpful in trying to use the zone system with Polaroid film, or any film for that matter. And last but not least, at least in my estimation, is my own book of Polaroid photographs called From Our Windows. It is a project that basically reintroduced me into Polaroid photography, SX-70 photography, something that I had put aside back in the late 1970s and got reacquainted in 2020 and did this entire project. It was again inspired by the fact that we were in isolation here in our house in Winnipeg, and it has a collection of Polaroid photographs that I took inside of our house here. Quite a nice book, in my estimation. You might want to take a look at it. The links to purchasing it are down below. I'll let you know that this is the standard regular edition, and I also produced a limited edition. And as a matter of fact, there's only 10 copies of the limited edition. Some have already sold. And the limited edition is, aside from being signed and numbered and editioned, it also has an original Polaroid in the back, mounted in the back of the book, that has also been altered by myself using alcohol inks. Anyways, that's it for the 2021 gift list. I hope we found something useful, something that you might want to give to your good friend who's into Polaroid photography, or perhaps who you want to get into Polaroid photography. In the meantime, as usual, get out there, do some Polaroid photography or some kind of photography, and hope to see you next year, next Christmas time, with another list that will hopefully include a little bit more about traveling.